Hey guys, Will here. So today's video is a little bit of an impromptu one, but there's something that's been stewing away in the back of my mind for quite some time now that I just feel like I need to get off my chest, and I feel like this is something that I need to share with the wider community. So look, apologies if I'm rambling a little bit in this video. It's not a scripted video or anything like that. It's just me sort of sharing my perspective on some stuff, and it is just going to be a face-to-cam style video as well. So if you want to click off and do something else and just listen in the background, that is totally fine. And if this video, if this isn't your style of video, then, just don't watch it. It's as simple as that. But yeah, look, there's a few things that have been going on in the background in the sim racing community, particularly around content creation, and in particular since the big spike in interest in sim racing around lockdowns, so around sort of February, March, April this year. And it's kind of just been continuing and perpetuating from there. So I've been one of the lucky people that's kind of had a well-established audience going into this. And although I've only sort of been involved in sim racing for just about exactly 2 years now, I did have a bit of a head start in terms of sim racing content creation, simply because I already had that established audience and quite a few people that were following me from back when I was doing automotive stuff and more sort of PC building and tech oriented stuff specifically. A lot of those people sort of followed me across into sim racing and ended up getting into sim racing themselves as well. So when I first started out making sim racing content, even though I had a good audience and I was getting, a relatively large number of views on my video compared to a lot of the smaller channels, my content wasn't necessarily of a higher standard, and I didn't necessarily have a more valid opinion than anybody else that was, producing content out of their living room or the dining room or wherever it is either. And, my channel, I've been very lucky that my channel has grown and grown and grown over the last 2 years since I've been doing this. And I've been able to sort of transition across from it being just a hobby and something that I do in the background for fun to something that is now my full-time job and supports my family. And as I mentioned in a video recently, I've actually got my younger brother, Tom, who, has been doing all of our live streaming and stuff like that for our community races and looking after that aspect of things. He's actually coming on as an employee in a couple of weeks to work with me and help me produce videos and edit and, do all those kinds of things. So, I've been extremely lucky in that regard and been able to sort of transition across from doing it as a hobby to a full-time job. And obviously part of that process, in not doing anything else with my time, in being purely focused on boosted media, has meant that I've been able to increase my production value and spend more time researching things and get exposure to more equipment, test more things out, and get a wider spectrum, a broader brush amount of exposure to different equipment, which gives me perhaps a more valid opinion in some cases than people that don't have that level of exposure to different gear. But, it's been a lot of hard work to get it to that point. And, I've bought a lot of gear. A lot of gear has been provided for free for review as well, as you guys know, and I always share that with you guys. But, I've had to work very hard to kind of get it to that point. But not everybody is as lucky as me in that regard. Not everybody has that established audience to begin with. And, obviously it's been a lot of work to get it to that point in the first place. But there's a lot of people out there that are making videos in the sim racing space. And, although they might not necessarily have the time and, the resources to produce videos of the quality that we do here at Boosted Media, that doesn't mean that their opinion is less valid than mine. And, this is something that's started to become a real problem recently. I've seen, comments on my own videos as well as comments on some other content creator videos. It's happening on some of the big channels as well. So, I see comments sometimes on, Barry from Sim Racing Garage's videos saying, oh, your videos are so much better than Boosted Media. I get similar sort of comments on my videos sometimes as well, saying that my videos are heaps better than Barry's. And oftentimes the comments are quite aggressive as well. People are saying, oh, Barry's videos are shit, or, Will from Boosted Media's videos are shit. And what's happening is it's creating this almost competitive nature between the content creators, but it's not being driven by the content creators ourselves. I mean, most of the content creators operating in this space, have good relationships with each other. I have open conversations with most of the larger sim racing channels these days. So the majority of this competition is actually coming from the viewers and not from the content creators ourselves. We're actually, trying to help each other out. That's the way it generally works anyway. I mean, there are obviously always going to be some exceptions to that. And there was a recent example, those who are part of or follow our Discord community for Boosted Media would be aware of a recent example of that, where somebody decided to fire shots at me, and the community very quickly shut that down. I did end up having to get involved in it, and I'm not going to go into details on that now. But yeah, that ended up being shut down pretty quickly by the community. The person apologized, and as far as I'm aware, at least it's all good now. But I think, there's a certain level of accountability that comes from having multiple people producing content on the same things anyway. So, for example, if I do a video on something and then another creator does a video on the same thing, but their opinion or the way they present the product is completely different fundamentally to what I've said, then obviously, one of us is saying something that's inaccurate or missing something, or, maybe we just value different things in that product. But, it becomes an easy way to tell if somebody's selling out, I guess, for example. I mean, it's a sort of a self-adjudicating system where, you guys as the viewers have the power to sort of say, well, hang on, he said that about it and he said that about it, which one's right? And you guys can hold us accountable throughout as well. And obviously the more people that there is creating content, the more opportunity there is for the community to get involved and sort of read between the lines and get a picture of what's going on overall. And that's why I think it's so important that we do have lots of people creating content on these same things. So I don't really see it as a competition, so to speak. I mean, it's very easy to get caught up in the YouTube analytics and sort of look at how different channels are growing. Oh, I grew faster than he did this month. And I mean, I've been guilty of that in the past as well, just because I'm passionate about what I do and I want to be successful. But at the end of the day, I really don't believe that we should be competing. I think we really should all be supporting each other. And that's generally what happens, for the most part anyway. But where I see the bigger issue is when it's smaller channels that are just starting out that are being pitted up against large channels like this one. So there's a couple of issues that this creates, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But one thing that I want you guys to understand as well is that I get a lot of messages from people that are just sort of starting out, a lot of people that have been inspired by the content that we create here, as well as being inspired by other channels as well. And that is so cool to see people that have, followed this channel since the beginning in many cases and have decided that they want to go down a similar path. That really does make my day every single time. But I get a lot of messages from people, and I don't want to sound like I'm big noting myself here by any means. It sounds a little bit arrogant, but this is just the truth. This is the way it is. I get a lot of messages, from people that are wanting advice and help to get started out. And what I try to do, and particularly since starting doing this as a full-time job, I try to spend as much time as I possibly can, within reason, of course, sort of being a bit of a mentor to these people and helping them out and trying to help them get off the ground, give them advice, give them tips and tricks and, things that I would do differently if I was starting again. And so I do have a good, healthy relationship with a lot of the smaller sim racing channels, as well as the bigger ones. And we talk quite openly and freely a lot of the time. So it really pisses me off, so to speak, when I see this happening, because, and I'll give you the example from today. So one of these channels who I've, been quite heavily involved with in sort of mentoring over the last year or so, did a review on a piece of hardware that I reviewed quite some time ago now, probably 18 months ago almost. No, just a little bit over a year ago. And the style of their video was quite different from the video that I did. I was sort of doing a more first impression style video at the time. And, back then I was actually, relatively new to doing this as well. And if I watch that video now, I probably wouldn't, in fact, I can guarantee I wouldn't do it in the same way now as I did it then, because I was a lot less experienced. And that's a perfect example of what we were talking about before, about the size of the channel not necessarily indicating the quality of the content. But yeah, look, basically what happened was this person was called out for, having issues with the product that hadn't been raised in other people's reviews. And basically the person was saying, why should we listen to you and not Will or Barry from Sim Racing Garage, was the two examples that were given. And it wasn't so much the comment that troubled me, because, while it is troubling because it's, saying we only pay attention to the big channels and we don't care about what the small channels have to say, what really concerned me more was the response to it, because it's kind of like the response kind of indicated that the content creator had felt like they'd been put in their place by the viewer. And, as far as I'm concerned, their place is right alongside me. And, in some cases, I actually think that they've done a better job of some of their content on the same subject matter than I have. And I've told them that. So yeah, to me, I just think that creates two really major problems. So the first problem is it discourages people that are just starting out from producing content in the first place. So, as a content creator, and I've been there, I've gone through that. When you're first starting out, you're putting yourself on the line, you're putting yourself out there for ridicule. And when you receive comments rather, that are sort of pitting you up against those bigger channels, what it makes you feel is inadequate. It makes you feel like you're never going to get there. It's really, really discouraging. And, for somebody who probably has a full-time job as well, and, you know, is busting their ass to try and create a successful YouTube channel whilst they're also trying to support a family and working their ass off on the side. And I've been there. I know what that's like. It's horrible. It's a lot harder than people think. You know, the last thing you want to have is somebody putting you up against and saying, oh, well, you're never going to be as good as this guy, so why do you even bother? Why should we even listen to you? Because that's the, I mean, regardless of the way it's intended, that's the way it's going to come across. That's the way it's going to be felt by the person that's making the video. So they're then discouraged to make future videos, which obviously sucks for the wider community, because the less opinions that are out there to, you know, get a gauge from, the less informed we are as, you know, as consumers. So that sucks. But I think the bigger problem that it creates is it sort of creates this bubble where the opinions of the big channels are the only ones that really matter. And anybody that doesn't fit that mold, anybody who doesn't, you know, say the same thing as the big channel, instantly becomes, you know, either wrong or labeled as incorrect or labeled as a shill or whatever it is. And I mean, I've seen examples that go both ways where, you know, if somebody has had a perfectly legitimate concern about a product, then because their opinion is varied from mine, they're instantly labeled as a shill for a different brand or something like that. And it happens all the time. You know, you see somebody say a good thing about one brand, and so instantly it means that they're a shill for that brand and, you know, working against the other brand or something like that. It happens really, really frequently. Not necessarily in the sim racing scene, but, you know, across the tech industry as a whole in general. So yeah, that larger bubble is a real problem, because what it means is that the viewers then get this distorted perspective where content creators are going, oh, well, I don't really agree with what Will said, or I don't really agree with what Barry said or whoever, but I don't really have the balls to say something different because I'm worried that I'm going to get called out, or, you know, people are going to think that I'm stupid or that I might be missing something. And what we really need is for people to just be sharing their opinion, you know, without those filters, because it doesn't matter. And I mean, I've been in that same situation many, many times. Even just the other day when I was doing my review of the 3D wrap handbrake and shifter, quite a few of the impressions that I had of that product were quite different from Barry's. And I kind of found myself questioning, oh, do I, you know, is there a reason why he didn't call this out? Is there a reason why his opinion on this was different from mine? And it did, you know, ultimately I didn't allow it to impact the way I worded things in the video, but it was in the back of my mind. And that was a bit of a wake-up call to me. I had to kind of think, no, I'm my own channel. I'm producing my own content. This is my opinion. It doesn't matter what anybody else has said prior. The important thing here is that I'm sharing my view, and that's what everybody should be encouraged to do. It shouldn't matter what any other content creator has said. It should just simply be your opinion. And the same goes for viewers as well. Share your opinions in the comments. I'm always saying to you guys, let me know if you think differently. Let me know what your experience is like in the comments, because to me, you know, that is more, that discussion down in the comments is more valuable than the content itself. You know, if you've got people that own a product that are sharing their experience down there, suddenly you've got hundreds of people who you can read through their comments and see what the product is like in the real world beyond just what my impression is when I'm doing a review video. So, you know, that discussion is so important. But if we're shooting people down and we're discouraging that conversation from happening, then we're not getting the level of discussion, and we're not getting the broad spectrum perspective that we should be. So it really does create that problem. And then it also creates the problem as well from the larger content creators side as well, where they can say basically whatever they want and everybody's just going to go along with it without question. And that is a problem as well. We need to be held accountable for the things that we say in our videos. If you disagree with what we're saying, tell us, because we need to go back and we need to fix it. And a perfect example of this is, you know, I was quite harsh on the SimMagic M10 when I reviewed it. I mean, and I still stand by the things I said, but you know, something that's been really, really fantastic is that they've actually gone and they've taken a lot of that feedback on board now, and they've really genuinely improved the product. And I've actually got another one coming now so I can do a follow-up review, simply because I saw what they'd done and I saw how they'd improved the product, and I wanted, you know, I felt like it deserved a second chance. So, you know, if we're not sharing those negative opinions, if we're not sharing those experiences, then the companies don't have the opportunity to improve their products either. If we're just creating this bubble where everything's perfect and everything's fine and dandy, it's not helping anybody except ourselves. You know, if I'm just creating content that says everything's perfect and everything's wonderful, you know, it's great for my channel because my channel continues to grow, but you know, it's not helping the industry. It's not helping the manufacturers that are trying to get feedback and improve their product. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that, you know, a lot of these brands now are catching on, and this is, you know, in the wider industry as well, not just sim racing, but a lot of brands are catching on now to the true value of review videos. In the early on stages of social media and influencers and things like that. It was very much that, you know, you were encouraged to sell out. And I still get, you know, probably 50 or so emails a week from funny little businesses that are wanting me to, you know, advertise their LED lights or their, you know, whatever it is. Usually it's, you know, things like that that aren't really relevant to the channel anyway. But, you know, they're offering money in exchange for a review video, which is really an endorsement video. And that's a subject for a whole nother video that we've talked about previously as well, the difference between an endorsement and a review. But, you know, for the most part, most of the legitimate larger brands, and especially in the sim racing scene, I've got to say I've been very impressed with all the major brands that I've dealt with in the sim racing scene. They don't want endorsement videos for the most part. They want genuine, honest opinions because it gives them the opportunity for free feedback. It's like free beta testing in a sense. And that does actually get frustrating sometimes as a content creator. You know, when you sent something that, you know, has problems and it's not necessarily indicative of what the final experience will be for the customer, that can be quite tricky to deal with as a content creator, because you want to present an accurate picture of what the customer is going to have in the end, but you also want to provide that feedback for the company as well. And there's quite a few examples where, you know, I've tested products for months and months and months before I've done the review, and there's quite a few products that I still have here now that I'm working with the brands, and we don't charge for this or anything because we don't want to blur those lines. But, you know, I work with quite a few companies to help them improve their products quite regularly. That's probably about 20 or so % of my time now, in fact, is spent just sort of helping them improve, because I want to see the products improve. I want to see the industry improved as a whole. And the only way that happens is if you share those opinions and you provide that feedback. So yeah, what I'm trying to say here is those companies are really starting to see the value in that. And essentially it's free marketing for them. All they have to do is send you a product, which, you know, usually in most cases, the RRP or the recommended price, what they sell it for, is a lot higher than what it actually costs to manufacture. So, you know, the cost price, essentially they're getting marketing for the cost price of the product. And, you know, it's as simple as that. So, you know, there's huge value in that if it's done correctly. But the moment they ask you to sell out, then it does create a problem. But yeah, there is always that opportunity there for people who want to sell out. And one really interesting thing that I will tell you is from my discussions that I've had with a lot of the major brands in sim racing, they actually receive a lot of emails from people that are basically saying, hey, if you pay me X amount of money, I'll make a video for you that says everything is, you know, I'll say whatever you want me to say. And to their credit, the vast majority of brands, particularly in the sim racing scene, don't want a bar of that. They're not interested in that sort of content whatsoever, because they know that you guys, the viewers, can see straight through that kind of bullshit. You know when you're watching a shill video. You know when you're watching something that's dishonest, and you know when something is so far out of what everybody else has said and all the other opinions that have been shared online that you can just tell that it's BS. And then again, that brings us back to why it's so important to have more than just one opinion out there for people to draw upon. So yeah, I guess as viewers, I just really want to encourage you guys to, you know, think about what you're saying in those comment sections. Think about whether what you're bringing to the table is actually bringing value to the discussion, or whether you're just trying to shoot somebody down. I mean, everybody likes to see their favorite YouTuber succeed, but, you know, success isn't pushing everybody else off the ladder. Success isn't, you know, battling your way to the top. Success is when you do a good job consistently and you're rewarded for your hard work. And that's, you know, ultimately what the majority of us content creators want to see. We want to, you know, all sort of work together, all bring our own creative flair. And, you know, while there is a competitive streak there in most of us, because we all want to be at the top of our game and we all want to be, you know, setting the benchmark for what's possible and what's considered quality content, we all do bring our own unique flair to the picture. And I think there's a space for all of us. So yeah, I guess I want you guys to understand that I don't see this as a competition. I don't see it as, you know, me being better than anybody else. And, you know, time and time again, I mean, even just the other day, I woke up, I was getting ready to do a review video on something. And I woke up and I had a bit of a look on Reddit and a few other places. And I kind of thought to myself, you know, what can I actually bring to the table here that hasn't already been done? There was all these other review videos that had already been made by all these little small channels, and some of them were really, really good. Some of them were pretty poor, but, you know, they're still opinions and they're still worth your time. So yeah, don't go, you know, I don't want to tell you what to do, but, you know, just think about what you're saying in the comments. Don't go chopping down these small channels. Think about the impact of what you're saying to the wider community, because if you shoot that person down and they then don't ever make another video, that's another opinion that you're missing out on. That's another opinion that the sim community on the whole is missing out on. And I mean, by all means, hold people accountable. If you feel like somebody's selling out or, you know, they're being misleading, yeah, call it out. Absolutely, because that's the way it should be. But don't just shoot somebody down because they have a different opinion from one of the big channels. As I said before, just because a channel's got a lot of subs and a lot of views doesn't necessarily mean that they're always right. And I mean, nobody's perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes in the past. I mean, I think back to the review I did of the Next Level Racing FGT Lite where, you know, because there was a defect with the swivel mechanism, I didn't realize that the whole thing hinged and that you could get in and out by hinging the thing across. And I mean, that was massively embarrassing for me because I did a review video that tens of thousands of people watched and I gave a misleading representation of the product. And I came back and I did another video straight away addressing that problem. But, you know, I made a mistake and the community called me out for it. And I mean, if that hadn't been called out, then I never would have known. And the sim racing community as a whole would have missed out on seeing that correction. So yeah, hold us accountable by all means, but don't just shoot people down. It really doesn't help anybody. And, you know, at the end of the day, we want to try and spread positivity as much as we possibly can. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of perspective to, you know, not only what it's like as a content creator behind the scenes, but, you know, as to what we're trying to achieve here for the community as a wider picture, because we are, you know, ultimately what we're all trying to do here is share a passion, share a love for a hobby, and none of us should really be taking it too seriously. We should all just be trying to enjoy ourselves, trying to, you know, get as many people involved and as many people enjoying this awesome hobby of ours as we possibly can. So thanks very much for bearing with me, guys. Hopefully you found the video insightful, at least in some form. Sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. It's a completely unscripted video, as I said before, but I think it was important to, you know, just share a little bit of perspective on this and, you know, maybe just sort of put it out there for consideration, because I don't want to see people being chopped down. I don't want to see, you know, people being discouraged from sharing their opinions, because that's what's most important to the community. So thank you guys very much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.